Hello, and welcome back to Therapist Plays Disco Elysium. Today's episode is all about Kim and how important he has become to us as both a figure that we have learned to trust and allow ourselves to develop an attachment to, but also how that represents the struggle to, okay, it's the start of a new day. And in some ways, the start of a new person. Okay, let's go find Kim. We are desperately in need of, well, one, companionship, but also supervision after our little adventures by ourselves. I wonder if he's going to say anything about our new appearance. One thing I'll say about the two of us, and guys, keep in mind, I'm using this game as like a platform to discuss different perspectives on mental health, even if they don't necessarily fit the role player narrative. Like, I usually try to add some perspective or some theory, even if it only like sort of fits, because it leads to like interesting discussion. So I was thinking about the two of us in the companionship we've developed, but also the issues that our character faced when we were not with him. And it had me thinking about attachment styles. Now, I am not like an expert on this subject. Attachment theory is like its own discipline that has its own specialization. It's not really the perspective that I gravitate to, but it is really important. And I look at Harry and I think about his history with relationships, especially given the context of the ex-wife, what we just went through with Lillian, the difficulties trusting Kim, and like we would probably say that his attachment style, there's different attachment styles, is like insecure, anxious. There's like insecure, avoidant. There's secure attachment, which is kind of what we all want. And there's different like styles of attachment that are basically a consequence of like usually early relationships, but it can also be later relationships, which set a foundation of expectations in some ways that are unhelpful to us, right? About what relationships should be and how to maintain them. When we have a disturbed attachment style, like anxious, insecure, we want a secure attachment and we think we're on our way to getting it, but the ways we go about it are very unproductive and often very toxic. So, like an anxious attachment style, anxious, insecure, would be someone who probably has like clinginess, a need for validation, a constant like testing of the relationship to see like if the person will abandon you. It's like an issue with abandonment, right? Because we've been abandoned by what feels like everyone. And that warped perspective usually comes into play where it's like we haven't probably been abandoned by everyone, but we feel like we have been. And so we see that opportunity for abandonment everywhere. So some of the things that we might do as an anxious, insecure attachment person is we might start getting jealous. We might either start getting jealous or try to instigate jealousy because we're looking for ways to establish our security in the relationship, but going about it in the worst way, right? We have such a fear of abandonment that we want to almost instigate a kind of codependence or to make the person feel like, oh, there are other people who are a threat to you, like for me, or everyone else is a threat to me regarding you, right? So jealousy can come into the picture there. So I just kind of want to be on the lookout for that stuff. I want to see if there's anything that comes up in our continuing dialogue and interactions that hints at the possibility that now that Kim has come into our life, now that Kim's come into our life, and he's like a safe person for us, and we've learned to trust him, but we're so fragile in that trust, and it's so singular, that potentially we could have shaky confidence that we will be able to maintain it, right? It's less about trusting Kim now, and it's more about trusting, like, oh, okay, he is a trustworthy person. He does want to be around me as a detective, but maybe also as a person. Talking about this like we're in love. He may, we've acknowledged he may actually want to be around us, but we have not come to security in ourselves that like we are enough to sustain that. We probably will be thinking like, okay, well, what's going to happen after this case? Is Kim going to stick around? Is he going to stick around in my life as a partner or even just a friend? So let's see. Yeah, just for context, like anxious avoidant may be something different, right? Like we may avoid affection, we may be more distant, we may, use the silent treatment and that sort of thing. Like it'll just be a very different set of behaviors, but similar dysfunction of attachment, right? Just remember that like we seek relief, right? When we're anxious about something, when we have like when something becomes disorderly, like we naturally seek relief for things. If I'm feeling anxious, I compensate and I look for a way to reduce the anxiety, right? But when it becomes disorderly is when I'm feeling anxious about things that are like not appropriate. For example, if I have like a stressful event coming up and I feel anxious about it, sure, that makes sense. That's like the natural thing to do, right? But if nothing is happening, if I have nothing coming up and I feel anxious, then we might look at this and say, oh, this might be like a generalized anxiety disorder, right? It's when the level of anxiety is disproportionate to the realistic source. And it's the same with relationships, with these attachment styles. Like, the level of insecurity and lack of trust, if Kim had, like, if we discovered him, like, if we were walking around in Martinez and we discovered him on the coast here yesterday, like, while we were alone, imagine we went out on our date with Leanne and I, like, saw Kim on another case with another detective. Like with those fucking other cops we ran into. Like if I saw that and I was like, you lied, you betrayed me. I'm not your only detective. Right? Then the level of insecurity may be appropriate. Okay, maybe like not in that exact example. But like, yes, if there's, I'm going to use the word infidelity in detective work. If there's any infidelity or betrayal, then it's natural to have insecurity. That's not disproportionate. When it becomes an insecure and anxious attachment and it's not proportionate is like when Kim has done nothing to suggest that he is doing something wrong, and yet we still feel that. So that's the distinction between like, yeah, anxiety and like insecurity, they're normal, they're functional, there's nothing wrong with them. It's when they are disproportionate to evidence of like justifying why we should feel like that. And at this point, Kim hasn't really done anything like that. We've not seen him like gallivanting around with another detective, solving some other case, or trying to like do police work without us. Which would also feel like, oh, so you think I'm a burden to be with you because you want to progress the case mostly without me because my bumbling nature slows you down. Like that would be something that stimulates this, right? So let's see how that goes. Again, I'm not saying that they are this type of relationship. I just find that the game has presented us many avenues to discuss psychological subjects. And I'll kind of just pull from those things as I can because like that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to talk about psychology. And that's it. Not much else. And maybe a little storytelling. Good morning, detective. Let's see if he says anything about my sword.
Yes?
I don't know what I was expecting. I find myself awash with shameful disappointment. Disappointment because I somehow expected him to like have new dialogue for me. Like Like, we've been away from each other. You're not, that's it? Just a yes? But also shameful because, like, maybe we are too invested. Maybe that's completely ridiculous to be expecting that much. But see, like, that's kind of what I mean, is when a relationship gets like this and we have invested so much in someone like him, and now we're looking for the signs. Like, it's exactly what I was saying, basically. My reaction to it is, like, feeling like, oh, we're at a certain level of trust and respect and admiration, and, like, I'm feeling like this is a big event that we're meeting again. Sounds so ridiculous. I feel like this is a big event that we're, like, returning to the case together. It means a lot to us that you are still showing up for us, right? And yet I'm looking for that validation that you feel the same. And when he just comes up to me and he's like, yes, like, just normal, we're a little bit like, oh my God, does he still love me? Does he still want to be around me? Like, now I might be having this anxious, insecure pondering about, like, did something change? Did he find another? I'm laughing at this because Kim and I's relationship is not this, but this happens in real relationships. You may have even experienced it in some of yours, where if you feel securely attached to someone and you don't really, like, you're not constantly in that neediness state, and, like, you see your partner after a while and you're like, hey, how's it going? You know, whatever. And they're like, that's it? You're not gonna, like, shower me with praise and recognition? Then you may run into a similar feeling that my Brady roleplay character is feeling right now, which is, why aren't you acting like this is a big deal? And the reason is, I'm securely attached to you. It's not a big deal that we're meeting here again because we're partners and nothing about that has changed. My insecurity is like, oh, well, I'm not sure if we're as tight as we seem. So I'm always wondering, has something changed? I mean, I went on a date, I got a sword, I saw a dead guy. Like, a lot has happened, Kim. That's it? That's all you got for? Oh my God, this has become such a deranged playthrough. At least it does give us some new dialogue, though. We're gonna check this out, but I want to start with this because this is, like, evidence to exactly what I'm saying, which is, like, haven't you noticed anything different about me, Kim? I got a haircut. I shaved my face. And imagine Harry as a person. This shaving of his face is such a significant thing. It is so it's a symbol of his transformation and acceptance of self. It has a lot of meaning and value to us. It would be very improper but realistic for us to assume that Kim, as someone we are attached to, would recognize that value. But he's probably going to say, oh yeah, it looks okay. Or it looks good, whatever. Or maybe he'll make a joke like, oh, it looks better. I kind of liked the beard, whatever, right? Like, it gave you some roughness. I don't. Again, from his perspective, a securely attached person, like, he's not seeing this as a little pitch of, like, validate me, see me, recognize that I'm different and I'm doing this for you. But yeah, if your partner's ever been like, did you notice anything about me that's different? Okay. Why aren't you noticing? Then yeah, you've probably been in a similar situation. Which is to say that if you're in that kind of relationship, and it is more work for the person who is insecure or anxious to develop that sense of trust again. But, you know, the best thing you can do is just communicate clearly when stuff like this happens, and learn how to navigate miscommunications. When you just say, oh yeah, you shaved, that looks nice. But I'm sitting here thinking, but this is a big deal. Why aren't you like seeing this as a big deal? Oh, I didn't understand, you know. Like you can learn to navigate those miscommunications, and we will talk about miscommunications at some point. We'll talk about communication breakdowns on a larger level. Let's see what happens. So, I shaved.
Yes. I don't know what to say. Perhaps.
So, you can tell the insecurity coming through, right? Okay, this reply is not so... Well, I could be insecure. It could be compensating. Like, I know, stunning, right? Like, sarcastic. But we're very concerned about Kim's opinion of us. We're very invested in him liking us and being around us because he gives us security and makes us feel like a good detective. And a good person, more importantly. And so, like, little things like this are very valuable to us, to have his feedback, his trusted feedback. I think, given what I just talked about for the last 17 minutes, this would probably be the most appropriate thing. Like, we're really not sure if this was a good idea. And, like, the insecure, anxious person may do a lot of this, like, self-worrying externally to get validation, to say, like, I knew I shouldn't save, I'm such an idiot, so that we get Kim to say, no, it looks good, you're not an idiot. See, I knew you loved me, right? Like, we may play with our own emotions in a way that lets us get that validation, even if this isn't what we really feel. And it can turn, you know, quite toxic, because then we're just constantly like attention seeking. But let's see what happens. I knew I shouldn't shave.
No, it's okay, I guess. I may have preferred the mutton chops. They sort of seem to cover the...
I swear, I have like... I have psychic powers. I know exactly what's going to happen.
Damage.
Either way, good on you. You were saying?
Yeah. What a beautiful little interaction. This game is actually human interaction perfected. Like, it's just, it continues to amaze me that exactly as we point out how human dynamics work, the game will usually give me like an immediate response to that. And the reason that I see some of that stuff happening is because, like, yes, people are very different, but on the whole, like, human psychology is quite consistent, you know, at least in where these perspectives have been validated. Okay, that's kind of like the underside of the psychological world, is a lot of our perspectives, like attachments and CBT and psychodynamic, like, they're all westernized perspectives, right? The tests and measurements, they are normed on Western populations, so they are not universally applicable, of course. There is still a lot of need for cross-cultural validation, and there are many perspectives that are not validated cross-culturally. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. However, there's a lot of like commonalities in just human interaction that are quite predictable. Like, if someone is, you know, insecurely attached, they may do this like validation-seeking behavior. So it's just super interesting. Now, I think it would be great to see what happens when we click this, because I seem to remember this was like not such a high level before. We've been kind of hanging on to this one for a while. So let's see, why did the 41st send me?
Look at you. It's because you're a failure. They sent you to slight Precinct 57.
Okay, I recently learned, almost 50 hours into my playthrough, that these options without the quotes mean I'm talking to myself. Yeah, I didn't realize that before. So, no, that can't be right. Yeah, that makes more sense. I don't know if that's true. I mean, Precinct 57, I can't remember. Is that where Kim is from? I mean, the sorry cop perspective would be like, yeah, of course they're doing it not because they trust me, but because I'm an idiot. Let's just go with that. Let's see what happens.
Just think about it for a second. You're a raging alcoholic who showed up 3 days late wearing piss-stained disco garb. You weren't sent here to win.
Ooh, so that makes us an underdog. Kim, what if my present precinct sent me on this case because I'm a fuck up, like as a joke? Again, great opportunity for us to test the theory of you're not a fuck up. It's not an impression of Kim. Because we're looking for his recognition.
I've considered it.
No. Well, I appreciate that Kim is not just he's not the kind of person to just validate that stuff. He's sincere, but he also like shoots clearly, right? Like he's comfortable just being like, yeah, you are a bit of a fuck up, but it's okay. Which is much better as a way to navigate the anxious insecure than to just constantly be like, no, you're not a fuck up, you're perfect. So like that's not helpful either. That does not help the insecure anxious person get out of that perspective. A little bit of realism, but still trust. Like, yes, you are kind of a fuck up, but that's okay. It doesn't make me want to not work with you. Like, that's a more appropriate response. So it's true.
It would be immensely ugly of them, not to mention unprofessional. But I also think it's somewhat unlikely.
Why is that?
I checked the records. This jurisdiction dispute, who polices Martinez, reaches back to the 30s. It's as old as my station. And all this time we can't decide who gets Martinez? I think, yes, both stations would prefer a win.
So you are their finest. Let's see how he takes this point of phrase.
I am the finest of nothing.
What? What? We can't unpack that anymore? Wait a second, Kim. How can you say that? Yeah. It's almost like I'm like personally offended because in our fictional minds, like he is saintly. I mean, just look at his portrait. He's got a fucking halo behind him, right? He has like literally saved our life by going on this case with us. He's given us a window into what a good partnership and friendship can look like. He has helped us along in our perspective of self-acceptance and helped us in our recovery from addiction. Like Kim has done so much for us that it's pretty natural for us to feel personally offended that how could you say that? You're like the most important person in our lives right now. Not only how could you defame yourself like that? You're so much better, but also how could you not see how important you are to me? Maybe I'm not communicating that enough. What this relationship means to me so far. Fascinating. I think he's just a humble guy, to be honest. Do you really see me as a safe bet?
Safe? No. But you're old. You've made it this far. Something has brought you through. We've only just started working together, so I don't know what it is yet. But it's there.
Well, thank you, Kim.
So no, I don't think they sent you as a joke. And even if they did, they're in for a surprise.
It healed us. It healed our morale. Even if they did, they're in for a surprise. Because we're going to solve this case.
He's right. There are no airtight theories, just paranoia. You've given it some thought. Now let it go.
I really like this interaction. What a beautiful scene. That we spent 25 minutes on. Okay, I'm gonna make this its own little episode just because I feel like the commentary, the dialogue I want to have with the community on this scene. I always am like, oh, if I go do something else and something happens, then like that event usually supersedes this one. But I kind of really want to know where you guys are with our relationship with Kim. I just want to hear your perspectives. Like, what was your development with Kim like? Because I know a lot of people like started off with a lot of admiration for him. And in our role play, it's been more so like he's the potential for someone to be close to, but we've been wronged before. We've been abandoned and betrayed before. So we were kind of like, okay, well, can we really trust him? Now that he has shown he is trustworthy, we're very worried about losing that. And so we might see some very anxious compensatory behaviors to keep him, right? That's kind of been the expectation I've had from the beginning. That's why I started off like, I'm not sure about him, because I think that's what my character would do. But I'm really curious how your guys' relationship with Kim has developed. And if any of this resonates, have you been in a relationship that someone has meant so much to you, but you've been worried about losing them and seen some of that attachment behavior from yourself? Let me know. I'd be interested to have a conversation about it. As for you, Kim, it's time to get back on the case. And I think we're going to start with going to visit a cell and the kids in the tent and going to check out that church next time on Eurobrady gets unreasonably attached to his want-to-be boyfriend / detective partner. So I will see you soon for that.